step she had, how majestic and graceful all her attitudes were. She thinks she has baffled me now. We will try something more, and bid a higher price." He unfolded his arms, and began to follow her. He gained upon her, for her beautiful walk was now wavering and unsteady. The works which had kept her in motion were running down fast. "Ruth," said he, overtaking her, "you shall hear me once more. Ay, look round. Your fisherman is near. He may hear me, if he chooses. Hear your triumph. I am come to offer to marry you, Ruth. Come what may, I will have you. Nay, I will make you hear me. I will hold this hand till you have heard me. To-morrow I will speak to any one in Eccleston you like, to Mr Bradshaw, the little minister, I mean. We can make it worth while for him to keep our secret, and no one else need know but what you are really Mrs Denbigh. Leonard shall still bear this name, but in all things else he shall be treated as my son. He and you would grace any situation. I will take care the highest paths are open to him." He looked to see the lovely face brighten into sudden joy. On the contrary, the head was still hung down with a heavy droop. "I cannot," said she. Her voice was very faint and low. "It is sudden for you, my dearest, but be calm. It will all be easily managed. Leave it to me." "I cannot," repeated she, more distinct and clear, though still very low. "Why, what on earth makes you say that?" asked he, in a mood to be irritated by any repetition of such words. "I do not love you. I did once. Don't say I did not love you then, but I do not now. I could never love you again. All you have said and done since you came with Mr Bradshaw to Abermouth first has only made me wonder how I ever could have loved you. We are very far apart. The time that has pressed down my life like brands of hot iron, and scarred me for ever, has been nothing to you. You have talked of it with no sound of moaning in your voice, no shadow over the brightness of your face. It has left no sense of sin on your conscience, while me it haunts and haunts, and yet I might plead that I was an ignorant child. Only I will not plead anything, for God knows all. But this is only one piece of our great difference." "You mean that I am no saint?" said he, impatient at her speech. "Granted; but people who are no saints have made very good husbands before now. Come, don't let any morbid, overstrained conscientiousness interfere with substantial happiness, both to you and to me. For I am sure I can make you happy; ay, and make you love me, too, in spite of your pretty defiance. I love you so dearly, I must win love back. And here are advantages for Leonard, to be gained by you quite in a holy and legitimate way." She stood very erect. "If there was one thing needed to confirm me, you have named it. You shall have nothing to do with my boy, by my consent, much less by my agency. I would rather see him working on the roadside than leading such a life, being such a one as you are. You have heard my mind now, Mr Bellingham. You have humbled me. You have baited me. And if at last I have spoken out too harshly and too much in a spirit of judgment, the fault is yours. If there were no other reason to prevent our marriage but the one fact that it would bring Leonard into contact with you, that would be enough." "It is enough," said he, making her a low bow. "Neither you nor your child shall ever more be annoyed by me. I wish you a good evening." They walked apart, he back to the inn, to set off instantly, while the blood was hot within him from the place where he had been so mortified. She to steady herself along till she reached the little path, more like a rude staircase than anything else, by which she had to climb to the house. She did not turn round for some time after she was fairly lost to the sight of any one on the shore. She clambered on, almost stunned by the rapid beating of her heart. Her eyes were hot and dry, and at last became as if she were suddenly blind. Unable to go on, she tottered into the tangled underwood which grew among the stones, filling every niche and crevice, and little shelving space with green and delicate tracery. She sank down behind a great overhanging rock, which hid her from any one coming up the path. An ash tree was rooted in this rock, slanting away from the sea breezes that were prevalent in most weathers. But this was a still, autumnal Sabbath evening. As Ruth's limbs fell, so they lay. She had no strength, no power of volition to move a finger. She could not think or remember. She was literally stunned. The first sharp sensation which roused her from her torpor was a quick desire to see him once more. Up she sprang, and climbed to an outjutting, dizzy point of rock, but a little above her sheltered nook, yet commanding a wide view over the bare naked sands. Far away below, touching the rippling waterline, was Stephen Bromley, busily gathering in his nets. Besides him there was no living creature visible. Ruth shaded her eyes, as if she thought they might have deceived her. But no, there was no one there. She went slowly down to her old place, crying sadly as she went. Oh, if I had not spoken so angrily to him! The last things I said were so bitter, so reproachful, and I shall never, never see him again. She could not take in a general view and scope of their conversation. The event was too near her for that, but her heart felt sore at the echo of her last words, just and true as their severity was. Her struggle, her constant flowing tears, which fell from very weakness, made her experience a sensation of intense bodily fatigue, and her soul had lost the power of throwing itself forward, or contemplating anything beyond the dreary present, when the expanse of grey, wild, bleak moors, stretching wide away below a sunless sky, seemed only an outward sign of the waste world within her heart, for which she could claim no sympathy, for she could not even define what its woes were, and, if she could, no one would understand how the present time was haunted by the terrible ghost of the former love. "I am so weary, I am so weary," she moaned aloud at last. "I wonder if I might stop here, and just die away." She shut her eyes, until through the closed lids came a ruddy blaze of light. The clouds had parted away, and the sun was going down in the crimson glory behind the distant purple hills. The whole western sky was one flame of fire. Ruth forgot herself in looking at the gorgeous sight. She sat up gazing, and, as she gazed, the tears dried on her cheeks, and somehow all human care and sorrow were swallowed up in the unconscious sense of God's infinity. The sunset calmed her more than any words, however wise and tender, could have done. It even seemed to give her strength and courage. She did not know how or why, but so it was. She rose and went slowly towards home. Her limbs were very stiff, and every now and then she had to choke down an unbidden sob. Her pupils had been long returned from church, and had busied themselves in preparing tea, an occupation which had probably made them feel the time less long. If they had ever seen a sleep walker, they might have likened Ruth to one for the next few days.